Good evening, everyone. I'm very excited to be talking to you about our Ed Catmull textbook, Creativity, Inc. I hope that you are enjoying this book as much as I am. I was watching Wall-E recently, and it was such a different experience after reading this book and knowing more about Pixar and its inner workings. So I'm going to be talking about Chapter 6 and Chapter 7, and hopefully hitting some of the main points in these 40 pages. Those of you following along in the PowerPoint, this is Slide 1. Chapter 6 is entitled Fear and Failure. I think that what Ed Catmull says about fear and failure is so important and very powerful. Catmull talks about removing the shame or fear of failure. Head on to your next slide. In our society, we're so conditioned from an early age to fear failure, and it has been given such a negative connotation that our reaction to failure is, as Catmull states, very visceral. Now, we've all heard phrases like, never let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game. Now, logically, this makes sense to us, but a lot of times it's easier said than done. Catmull uses the context of the development of various Pixar movies to demonstrate how they view failures and how they deal with them. Pixar looks to treat any misstep or failure as a learning experience and work toward positive outcomes. Head to your next slide. There are several ways to achieve this. The first is not to assign blame when mishaps occur. And this is something that hit hard for me in my current job. The first thing that happens when any problem or misstep is found is everyone has to make it known to everyone else that they had nothing whatever to do with it. And in my opinion, this is never productive. Your priority has to be solving the problem at hand and moving forward. And the second thing managers can do is to make sure that missteps or failures are a learning experience, and taking steps to ensure that you have the tool and knowledge to make sure that it does not happen again. Thomas Edison once said that I have not failed, I have found 10,000 ways that won't work. And this is a similar attitude that Pixar seeks to have about missteps and failure. Now, a third way is for managers to be open about their own missteps. And this allows others to feel more comfortable and safe talking to them about their own. And this goes back to what Catmull says about candor and openness. Now, this discussion inevitably begs the question why it is so important to Pixar and why shouldn't it be important to any company you might be managing. Head on to your next slide. Removing this fear or stigma of failure allows people to be more creative and explore new ideas. It allows people to step outside their comfort zone and to try something new. Take Catmull's example of learning to play the guitar. No one would pick up a guitar if they knew they had one opportunity to play a chord correctly. I once saw an interview with an actor discussing a director he had worked with that liked to do lots of takes of a given scene. He talked about how freeing this was and how it allowed him to explore many different avenues. It took the pressure off each individual take and therefore removed that element of fear. Catmull ends his chapter saying, management's job is not to prevent risk, but to build the ability to recover. Head on to your next slide. Chapter 7 is entitled The Hungry Beast and the Ugly Baby. Now first, let's define these two terms. Head on to your next slide. Beast is any large group that needs to be fed an uninterrupted diet of new material and resources in order to function. Ugly babies, now in this context are the early mock-ups of films. They are awkward, informal, vulnerable, and incomplete versions of the adults they will grow to be. Head on to your next slide. This idea of feeding the beast involves, for lack of a better word, churning out safe projects that mimic proven moneymakers just to keep production going. According to Catmull, this yields predictable, unoriginal fare because it prevents the kind of organic ferment that fuels inspiration. Go on to your next slide. These two forces, according to Catmull, are important and must be kept in balance of each other. The ugly baby is so pure and full of potential, but also needy and unpredictable. The beast is a glutton, but also a valuable motivator. Finding this delicate balancing act is a struggle for many managers. A manager must work to restore balance whenever the scales tip in one direction or the other. In many situations, it is easy for the beast to take over, but as Catmull states, originality and the new must be protected. Catmull uses the example of Pixar's internship program as an example of protection that led to engagement. An example of this idea of the beast and the ugly baby that I keep going back to and thinking about from my days working in public schools, it's a little bit of a stretch, but go with me on this, was that of the institution of standardized tests. So often schools focus on test scores and teaching test-taking skills. In this context, this is our beast, that there is no outlet for students' natural curiosity or creativity. For my discussion question to you guys goes back to Chapter 6 and the fear of failure. Much of Catmull's message is about removing the shame and fear from failure. What was a time when you were able to remove the shame from failure, and what was the outcome? Thank you guys so much for your attention, and I really look forward to reading your responses.